starts right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am not having a very good day. So let me get the pleasantries out of the way first. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday, over the national airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM dial nearest you. Plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80. Plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. This Mother's Day, show Mom just how much you appreciate her love and support with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, you can get 36 sorbet roses for just $36. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Approximately 3 minutes from now, we will have on two-time NBA champion, NBA Hall of Famer, one of the greatest guards who have ever played the game of basketball. His name is Isiah Thomas. He will be on the show with us in about 3 to 4 minutes to talk about tonight's matchup in Portland, to talk about Kyrie Irving going against the Milwaukee Bucks, along with the guard play we have witnessed in these NBA playoffs. And then to top it all off, to start off hour number 2, we'll have the great P.J. Carlesimo, former coach at Seton Hall, who took them to a national title game, NBA analyst extraordinaire for ESPN, former head coach in the NBA for various teams. He'll be calling the game for ESPN tonight in Portland between OKC and Portland. So you've got your share of basketball, brilliant basketball knowledge coming on the show. And I mean, you already got it anyway with me hosting the show, but I'm just saying it's even better now that you're going to have those two dudes on the show within the next hour. But before I get to Isiah Thomas, let me get this off my chest. This damn Dave Gettleman, the Giants general manager, does an interview with Steve Politi of NewJersey.com, NJ.com. Mr. Politi, if I mispronounced your name, I apologize. It's spelled P-O-L-I-T-I. I assume it's Politi, but I could be wrong. Politi. I could be wrong. That'd be one of the two. Nevertheless, Dave Gettleman talks to this man, the general manager for the New York Giants, and he's asked a question in regards to critics and whether or not they're missing the point or why he made certain trades this offseason. Gettleman's response: there's more to it than just collecting talent. There's a cultural thing to it that's critical. I have not been on a team that's gone to a Super Bowl that's had a culture problem, end quote. Politi followed up by asking Gettleman if he had a culture problem in New York, and Gettleman's response was, not anymore. I think it's safe to say he wasn't talking about Olivia Vernon. I think it's safe to surmise and assume that he was talking about Odell Beckham Jr. because thereafter Odell Beckham Jr. went on Twitter, paraphrasing because I don't have the tweet in front of me, talking about ask my teammates, ask the coaches, ask anybody that's ever played with me, etc., etc. I'm not a cancerous effect on a locker room, blah, blah, blah. Proceeded to put out about 44 tweets responding to trolls on Twitter. Why, I don't know, but that's what he did. And to me, Odell Beckham Jr. has every right to come to his own defense. First of all, you get him and you're a grown man. You're a grown man and an executive. What the hell are you taking shots at Odell Beckham Jr. for? Why would you do that? Number two, it gives the impression that he was the reason y'all were losing when you know good and damn well that wasn't true. Number three, it brings attention to Gettleman and the Giants' fixation on elevating the stature of Eli Manning, the two-time Super Bowl champion, who still won't be a Hall of Famer in all likelihood, because when he wasn't winning those 2 Super Bowls, he was busy missing the playoffs most of the time. Even though I think a 2-time Super Bowl champion warrants consideration to the Hall of Fame. And if he was a basketball player, he'd damn sure be in the Hall of Fame with some of these Hall of Famers that are in there. But it's this football we're talking about here. So let's take that into consideration. Now, the one thing I will say, because all of that was in defense of Odell Beckham Jr., who I don't believe deserved what Gettleman implied. But I will say this. When I think about Odell Beckham Jr., this is the one thing I can't come to his defense of. You're arguing with a Twitter troll who brings up your playoff performance. And Odell Beckham Jr. intimates about him being in the playoffs and what have you done? It could have easily happened that the Twitter troll could have came back and said, I've won as many playoff appearances as you. As many playoff games, rather, as you. And I've been to one less playoff appearance than you. Because Odell Beckham Jr. only been in the playoffs once. And in that game, you were targeted 11 times. You dropped 4 passes. So let's pump the brakes and be mindful of who you're chirping at. It's not necessary, and it doesn't all make you look good. But my real focus is on Gettleman. And the fact that here you are implying, in my opinion, that Odell Beckham Jr. was the problem. And we all know that the New York Giants were a problem. Got a busy signal. I need that fixed, please. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That's what we're talking about here. So when you imply that Odell Beckham Jr. is the problem, that really, really rubs me the wrong way. Because everybody and their mother knows Eli Manning was the problem. Let's stop that nonsense. Let's be honest about what's transpired with the New York Giants. Let's understand that as the NFL draft approaches this Thursday, we're all hoping and praying that the Giants are smart enough to take Dwayne Haskins. Not because that's your only need, but it's because Eli Manning has been relatively bad over the last 2 or 3 years that we know it's time to move in a different direction. Why else would you be looking at the New York Giants and contemplating whether or not they made the wrong pick with picking up Saquon Barkley with the number 2 overall pick, knowing what a stud he is? Why? Because you know how desperate your needs were at the quarterback position. And Sam Darnold went number 3 to the Jets when he easily could have won number 2 to the Giants. So that's what we're talking about here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, in any minute or so, assuming our technology is all right, on the line with us right now is the one and only Isiah Thomas. Are you there, Zeke?
I am here. How are you?
What's up, my brother? How are you? How's everything going?
Life is good. I am here in Denver, getting ready for Denver, San Antonio tonight, so all is good.
Well, let me tease you a little bit because I'm your brother. I'm your boy. I can do this to you. Let me tease you a little bit. You're already looking better than half the population, even though you're over 50, but you're on the treadmill acting like you're fat and out of shape and need to lose some weight. I just told on you. Is that a problem?
No,
is that a problem? That's what I'm saying.
That is not a problem, and thank you. But I have to try to keep up with you because, you on TV looking good. I see you and Will Bond now. Y'all got the whole NBA on lock, telling all the secrets, giving up all the information. We can't hide anything anymore from you two.
Well, let me say this to you. I need your help with something because let me tell you something. There are questions that I don't have answers to compared to the likes of you. So let's get right into it. We got a playoff game tonight, closeout game. We've got Portland in game 5 going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think the big question right now, Zeke, is what the hell has happened to Russell Westbrook in your opinion? How do you go from shooting in the 80 percentile from the free throw line to 66% this regular season? How have you been struggling with your shot the way you've been struggling in this series against Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers? What the hell is going on?
Well, two things I see has happened. We have to give Lillard a lot of credit for his maturation and growth over these last couple of years. And I'm not talking about the way he's played the game. I'm talking about his maturity as a leader, his personhood, and how he's approaching the game. His relationship with his backcourt mate and McCollum. I mean, they have stayed tight throughout some very difficult times in Portland. And too many times we measure growth only by points, rebounds, and assists. But what I've seen in him as a leader, as a man, and as a player has definitely shown the light and shined the light on how far he's come and how far he's paced Westbrook. When we look at Westbrook, we love his talent, we love the way he competes, but his maturity level and maturation level as a leader and also as a teammate and as a player has definitely been stifled. He seems stuck on where he was in the past and not necessarily where he needs to be presently and in the future. And I think that's affected his game.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean by that when you say he's been stuck on the past? Specifically, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about him being a past MVP of the league, someone who's averaged a triple-double, and someone that we've all admired the way he's played the game and competed within the game. Mm-hmm. We all expected a maturation from an intelligence standpoint in terms of mastering the game and not turning the ball over at crucial times, taking good shots at the right time, making sure your teammates are involved at the right time, just doing all the things that we see Lillard doing now that Westbrook isn't doing. So Westbrook has really stayed stuck on the numbers and not necessarily transcended to the intelligence part of the game, where you need to really be the quarterback and the leader out on the floor to make your team win.
We're talking to Isiah Thomas, two-time NBA champion, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. I'm looking at the backcourt because we're talking about Russell Westbrook right now, but Dame is averaging better than 28 in this series, on better than 43% shooting from the field, 44% shooting from three-point range, launching about 9 three-pointers a game throughout this series. C.J. McCollum is averaging better than 26. He's also shooting, better than 43% from three-point range, launching nearly 8 three-pointers a game. Then we look at Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Paul George is at 26, Russell Westbrook's at 21. Both of them are shooting 37% or worse from the field. Both of them are shooting 30% from three-point range. So is it fair to just be talking about Russell Westbrook, or is Paul George getting a pass in all of this, even though he's averaging 26.8 a game in this series? Should we be talking about more about Paul George or more about the backcourts against each other as opposed to Dame versus Russell Westbrook?
Definitely the backcourts against each other. However, the two prominent and most notable people in the series is Westbrook and Lillard, and those are the two that we focused on. But when you move to the backcourt, you definitely look at it and say that the smaller players are dominating the taller players. So Westbrook is a taller player than Lillard. George is a taller player than McCollum, and why are the smaller players having such an effect on the two bigger players who are clearly, have more athleticism and size, so forth and so on? The smaller players are playing a smarter game. They're taking better shots. They're getting more quality looks. And when they take the ball to the basket, not only are they finishing at the rim, but they're also going to the foul line and they're making their free throws. So the quality of shots that the smaller backcourt in Portland is taking and getting, that's dominating the bigger backcourt that you have in OKC right now.
We also know that Nurkic went down before the regular season ended with that nasty leg injury in a regular season game. And I'm looking at the three top shooters for Oklahoma City. Paul George and Russell Westbrook are both shooting 20 times a game. And then you got Dennis Schroeder shooting about 11 times a game. Yet Steven Adams only getting about 8 shots a game. And I'm wondering why you're not doing something to feed him the ball more. Am I wrong in that thinking?
No, you're not wrong at all. And this is a series that we thought that Adams would be able to dominate because of his physicality and also because his ability to play around the basket. Adams has not received the ball. He hasn't gotten enough touches. Well, when you look on Portland's side of the table, what those two guards are doing, they're incorporating Cantor. They're making sure that Cantor gets enough touches and that he's effective within their offensive set. I see George and Westbrook right now not necessarily playing to win, but playing to kind of cover themselves in the media from a statistical standpoint to make sure that they get their numbers, but not necessarily win the basketball game. Whereas on the other side, you have Lillard and Westbrook playing to win the basketball game and also getting their numbers.
So with that being said, if the Oklahoma City Thunder get closed out tonight, how bad of a look is this going to be for Russell Westbrook? How bad of a look is it going to be for Paul George, who elected to stay in Oklahoma City as opposed to going to the Lakers?
Well, I say it's a terrible organizational look and also a player look. I mean, you gotta take it all into account, Stephen A. You look at OKC over the last 8 to 9 years. Arguably, they've had the best players come through their organization over the last 8 to 9 years and haven't been able to hold those players. They've probably spent the most money over the last 8, 9 years than any other organization or top 5 organization out there also. So when you look at the players who have come through there in terms of Durant, Westbrook, Harden, Ibaka, Paul
Reggie
George,
Jackson.
Reggie Jackson. I mean, that organization and that management has had, a plethora of players that have come through their organization. So to just blame it on Westbrook and George this year, yes, that is a bad look. But when you look over the last 8 years from where they were in the NBA Finals, if you just start from when OKC was in the NBA Finals battling against the Miami Heat and look at what has happened to them and the players that have come in and out of that organization, not only do you have to question players, but you also have to question the management, coaching, and so forth and so on. So it's not just Westbrook and George. I think you have to examine the whole organization and their strategy, what has happened, and critique that also along with those two.
One of the greatest guards in NBA history, the one and only Isiah Thomas, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News, doing an outstanding job, by the way, on TNT and the NBA TV, calling some of these games, covering and giving his analysis. And I would encourage everybody to go to NBA TV anytime he and Kevin McHale are on together. They were doing an outstanding job throughout the regular season, just giving basketball lessons on a weekly basis, for crying out loud. Let's transition to the Eastern Conference for a second, because obviously one semifinals matchup is set up, Isiah. We've got the Greek Freak and Milwaukee, obviously with an exceptional job being done by Budenholzer as the coach, going up against the Boston Celtics squad led by Kyrie Irving. We had a debate on First Take this morning. I said Kyrie Irving is more important than the Greek Freak, because as phenomenal as the Greek Freak is, you look at the team around him and the exceptional coaching job that Budenholzer has done this year, and you juxtapose that to the Boston Celtics and what we've been seeing from them. I think Kyrie is everything, whereas as awesome as the Greek Freak is, I think Milwaukee could do some damage even without him. To that you say what?
I say that's accurate, and not only is that accurate, I agree with it. And I look at what Kyrie is doing these playoffs, and you have to say that the lessons that he learned in Cleveland from playing with LeBron James, statistically, he's playing a very similar game to the way that LeBron played, in terms of not only being the shot maker, but also being the facilitator and being the ball-dominant person, deciding on each and every offensive possession who gets the shot, who takes the shot, and where it's taken from. And that's how LeBron James played with him. That actually frustrated him for a long period of time, and why he wanted to move and have his own team. And now that he has his own team, he's playing a very similar game and style to the way LeBron James played, in terms of dominating the ball. And you look at the statistical numbers that he's put up, he's having his best playoff series because of the way he's chosen to play. And it's actually benefited Boston, in my opinion, the way Kyrie Irving is playing. On the other side of the table, when you look at Milwaukee, Giannis, to me, he's the most unique player that we've ever seen in the NBA. Not only because of his skill set, but also because of his attitude. You know, this is a dude who says, I'm not going to settle for the three-point shot. I know y'all say I need to shoot the three a little bit more, but Stephen A., he acts like you and I would act if we were big men. Every time we got the basketball, if we can dunk on you, we gonna dunk on you. And that's how Giannis is playing with that attitude. He's not selling it. Every chance he gets to try to get to the lane and dunk on you, that's exactly what he's doing. And he's doing it with a force, and he's doing it in a way that really is unstoppable right now.
But I got to tell you, Zeke, I picked Boston at the beginning of the season, although I wouldn't bet my money on them now because Milwaukee looks so formidable on both ends of the floor, I might add. And then you got three-point shooters like the Lopez's of the world. You got Bledsoe performing. You got Mirotic back. You got a situation where Brogdon's about to be back. It's hard to pick against Milwaukee. But I will say this, I'm not trying to jump off the boat that I've been on, which was the Boston Celtics from the beginning of the season. Here's what I will say. If Boston is going to win this series, they got to shoot the ball the way they shot the ball in the first round, with Horford shooting threes, with Kyrie shooting threes, with Jaylen Brown, our boy, shooting threes, with Jason Tatum. They've got to beat you from the perimeter because the one game they beat Milwaukee this year in the three meetings, they were outscored in the paint by 40 points, but they hit 24 three-pointers. Is there another way that Boston can beat Milwaukee in this upcoming series?
I think it's going to be difficult for Boston to beat Milwaukee. And the reason why I say that is because, what you alluded to in terms of Bledsoe, the way he's playing and the confidence that he has right now. Last year, I thought in the playoffs, he had a rough playoff series and he did not play well. As a matter of fact, he would tell you that he really stunk up the place. I look at what he's done thus far this season and the way he's bounced back as a player and as a man. And again, I look at maturation and how you mature and develop intellectually as a player as much as I do physically as a player. And where he's at right now intellectually in the game in the playoffs, he's in a really good spot. So I look at him to be a difference maker in the playoffs. Also, the thing that I question about Boston, and Stephen A., you know this from playing team sports, the trust factor that they have with each other with the Celtics right now is very fragile. And when you're trying to beat a team in the playoffs, the thing that you're really trying to do is break the teammates' trust and confidence within each other so they won't be able to execute their game plan. And when I look at Boston right now from a trust and confidence standpoint, they're very fragile. And one or two losses can really break their trust or their ability to communicate with each other to execute the coach's game plan. And that's what I think Milwaukee will try to exploit, their trust and their confidence level within themselves.
So you got Milwaukee winning this series?
I have Milwaukee winning the series, yes.
Isiah Thomas right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Houston losing to Utah last night, big deal or no big deal?
I think that's a big deal. I really do. The closeout games, they say, are very difficult to win. And they're difficult to win because when you got that person down and you got your foot on his neck, if you don't snap it and you let him get up and now he's got new life, that's a dangerous fight. And if they go to Houston and trying to win a closeout game at home, those are difficult too, because the opponent coming in, he has nothing to lose, so he's going to lay it all out. And if Houston plays a little tight, they can find themselves, believe it or not, seeing a 7-game series. So if they don't close out, it's going to be problematic. And I think Utah winning in Utah the other night, that was a big win, and Houston better be ready to win Game 5.
But what about the manner in which they defended Harden, playing right off his left hand. I thought it was smart on Quinn Snyder's part because basically you're taking away his left arm. You're forcing him to go to the hole as opposed to launching the threes, even though he made 50% of them last night. Basically, that's what you've been trying to do. And essentially, you've been trying to turn Mike D'Antoni's team into a 2-point scoring team as opposed to James Harden doing what he wants and launching the threes. I think that's significant. What about you?
It absolutely is, and that's the way you beat Houston. Houston has three ways to score. They use the 3-point line, they use the free throw line, and they shoot layups. Now, if you can take one of those away, if you can reduce their effectiveness from the 3-point line and force them into a free throw game in the layup game, the way their offense is set up, they can't score enough points to beat you if you're playing well. What Utah and what most teams do are trying to do is use all 5 areas of the court. When you use the 3-point line, layups, free throws, and then you use post-game and mid-range, now you have 5 ways to score as opposed to 3. And I think what Utah did effectively last night and the night before, even though they lost game 3, I thought they took away the 3-point line from Harden. And when you give Houston only 2 ways to score, they're not as effective as they are when they use the 3-point line.
Zeke, I got to get on out of here, but I got to ask you a quick question, real quick, for a quick answer. Does Philly close out Brooklyn tonight?
Yes. How's that?
Oh, that works for me. Always. What about Denver and San Antonio? Is this going 7?
I think this goes 7. I think Denver wins here tonight. San Antonio wins game 6, and I think they come back here for a game 7.
Wow. Zeke, appreciate you, man. Keep up the great work, man. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. You can go back on that treadmill now, bro.
All right, thank you.
One and only Isiah Thomas right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage in America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. 888-SAVE-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We'll get to your calls on these NBA playoffs and on what I had to say about Odell Beckham Jr. and Dave Gettleman before PJ Carlissimo calling tonight's OKC Portland game comes on the show with us to start off hour number 2. Stick around and touch that dial. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post the job in minutes, set up screening questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post the job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed. This show and all of ESPN is streaming live on the ESPN app. Now with ESPN Plus, where you get more ESPN. Download the ESPN app today and take ESPN everywhere.
Oklahoma City leadership, GM, ownership, coaching, players, or it's NBA leadership. Somebody's got to put a stop to it and let them know that you cannot do that, because this is the reason why, as I saw you earlier, this is the reason why we're able to make $35, $40 million a year. You have to be true and be professional. It's part of the job. I understand, like I said, being frustrated one night and not answering a question and making a point if a guy did something dirty, grimy, or disrespectful. Other than that, you have a responsibility to answer the questions, answer them like a pro. You can be short and precise to somebody that you're not cool with or somebody that's trying to attack you or kill you. We can do that. There's ways to do that. But next question, all this time later, is not how we do it in this league, and it's unprofessional, and I can't co-sign it as much as I love Russell Westbrook.
transitioning from Russell Westbrook and Oklahoma City Thunder and Portland to Denver and San Antonio. This series is notched at 2-2. I'm at a struggle trying to decide, do I give San Antonio all the credit in the world because of how they've looked, considering that not much was expected from them as a 7th seed? Or do we look at the Denver Nuggets and say this is a young team that was down 1-0, tied the series, down 2-1, that tied the series, and look at these young guys and say they're a bigger threat than we thought they were? How should we look at this series?
Well, going in, surprisingly, I picked San Antonio to win the series. I think both teams are extremely well coached. I think Denver has done an outstanding job all season long, end the season in a 2 seed. The problem with Denver, in my opinion, why I picked San Antonio is when you come down to playoff basketball, you need a guy that I could throw the ball to, forget about what's on the clipboard, and he's going to make a play either for himself or for others. I wasn't sure that the Denver Nuggets have that guy. Now, when they won the game, that guy has shown up, whether it's been Jamal Murray, whether it's been the Joker, they've shown up and made plays. When they've lost, they've been thoroughly outplayed. I still pick San Antonio, but give Denver a lot of credit for going into San Antonio and winning. Now the problem is you don't want to relax because the San Antonio Spurs are more than capable to coming into your building, they've proven it, and win a game. It's going to be a great series, and I think it's far from over.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Just how much you appreciate her love and support with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, you can get 36 sorbet roses for just $36. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, reminding you that starting off hour number 2, NBA analyst extraordinaire PJ Carlissimo will be on with us live from Portland, Oregon, where he's scheduled to call tonight's Game 5. Potential closeout game between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Russell Westbrook versus Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, Paul George, and the crew. Bottom line is the entire backcourt, meaning Paul George and Westbrook, are being outplayed by C.J. and Dame at this particular moment in time. That's really what this comes down to. We're talking basketball here, nothing else. 888-SAY-ESPN, it's 888-729-3776. Remember, the 76ers have a closeout game scheduled for tonight as well against Brooklyn. Coach Brett Brown has warned his players to watch out. Brooklyn's not going to go down easy. They're feisty. They're going to go down with a fight. And, they want to avoid fisticuffs and things of that nature because Joel Embiid, without question, when healthy, the best big man in basketball. He is spectacular. Make no mistake about it. And by big man, I mean center, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not talking about Giannis playing the 4 and being on the perimeter most of the time and when he's not driving in the dunk on people. I'm talking about Joel Embiid, a 5. Essentially, he's an antagonist. And, he antagonized Jared Dudley, antagonized others with elbows to Jared Allen and hard fouls and all of this other stuff. So Brett Brown told his players to watch out. We'll see what unfolds as the playoffs continue tonight. Let's go to Eric. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me. Eric.
Hello.
Goodbye, Eric. Goodbye, Eric. Bye. You got to be ready when I call you. Bye. Let's go to Tony. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
¿Cómo está, Stephen A? Long time no
¿Cómo
talk.
está? ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo está?
Everything good. Listen, real quick. Outside of them getting into Brooklyn's head tonight, who would you say besides D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert would be the key piece to get maybe a game to get this to keep the I guess this round going for Brooklyn?
I think D'Angelo Russell has to explode. I think D'Angelo Russell has to explode tonight, no question about it. And I think guys like Joe Harris and Dinwiddie and those boys, I just think they have to be formidable offensively tonight. I think that, listen, both teams' offenses have been relatively effective, but somebody's got to explode. You got to explode in such a fashion to demoralize the competition. And Jimmy Butler, you can expect a big game for him tonight. He got ejected last game. Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and those boys picked up the slack. But expect Jimmy Butler to have an impact on this game tonight because he's certainly not going to back down from the challenge. Neither is anybody in Philadelphia. So it is what it is. Have a nice day. Let's go to the next call. Brian, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. How you doing?
I'm all right. Go ahead.
Well, I was calling about the Oklahoma City and Portland game on tonight, and I just think it's real important that Portland closes the deal out tonight because I don't think they want to give Oklahoma City any life because, as we both know, Oklahoma City has a lot of heart. And if they get some heart and come back, I think they could stretch it to a 7th game, and anything can happen in a 7th game.
Well, one could make the argument, Brian. But, Brian, one could make the argument that the heart that Oklahoma City has actually gotten in its way because that heart is led by the likes of Russell Westbrook and Paul George. And when you got guys, look at the great Isiah Thomas said they're fixated on getting their numbers as opposed to winning, whereas Portland is prioritizing winning and getting their numbers because of it. There's a difference.
Yeah, they're taking it as it comes to them. I respect that. Yeah,
all right.
I can kind of see what you're saying.
Thanks a lot, man.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, I got you. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Thank you. Take it easy. Trevor, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
I'm going to talk about the energy of the Sixers. I feel that they have more energy than Nets. I feel that they're going to be able to close out the game.
Energy than the Nets? The Sixers?
Yeah.
I think if the Sixers lose, I think if the Sixers win, it ain't going to be because of energy, bro. It's going to be because of the fact that they have more talent than Brooklyn. Brooklyn's got to win in free agency because I don't see them winning this series. Appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Let's go to Frederick. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Fred?
Hey, Fred. This is Freddie from Allentown, PA. How do you feel about Ben Simmons shooting all these threes on YouTube but don't shoot it in the game?
Well, I have a problem with the fact that Ben Simmons doesn't have a jump shot because I think that's the only thing holding him back. I think the only thing holding Ben Simmons back from being a straight, bona fide superstar and league MVP candidate is his jump shot. I think in every other area, he's beautiful. His ball handling skills, his passing skills, his basketball IQ, his competitive fervor, his defensive tenacity. He ain't scared of anybody. I love Ben Simmons. I just want him to get a jump shot.
Yeah. All right, and I don't know if I can ask one more, but I'm going to ask one more. We're like a Klay Thompson away, but how do you think we could match up with them if everybody's playing their A game? Like, do you think we could take Golden State to Golden State?
No. Even though you beat them in the regular season, I don't think so. I think that they're too great at being shot makers, and I think it would be too much for you to overcome. I don't view that at all. I think Milwaukee's a good matchup for them. I think Boston's a better matchup for them. I do think the acquisition of Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler helps because if Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris are hitting their perimeter shots, then that's a different ball game. But that's asking a lot. Their scorers, not necessarily shooters. And I think you got to have shooters to compete with the Golden State Warriors. And I don't think Philadelphia has that enough in abundance to pull that off. But you got bigger problems to have. Philadelphia right now isn't considered better than Toronto, and they're not considered better than Milwaukee. They believe they could beat both, especially Milwaukee. We shall see. And they're lucky they don't go up against Boston because that has appeared to be a matchup nightmare for them. But I think right now you got to concern yourself with the East as opposed to the West of the NBA because the Sixers ain't going to the finals unless some miracle happens in terms of Milwaukee and Toronto really, really falling off. I would love to see Boston and Philadelphia in the conference finals. That would be my dream. I don't think either of them would potentially win the next series, but I hope and pray that I am absolutely wrong. Gotta go. Appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. More of your calls to close out hour number 1 before PJ Carlissimo starts off hour number 2 in a minute. By the way, if you missed my opening segment, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast. Brought to you by the Capital One Saver Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, and 1% on all other purchases. Hey, what's in your wallet?
Your radio, your computer, your phone, or just Just tell your smart speaker to play ESPN Radio.
Now playing ESPN Radio.
Take ESPN everywhere.
Basketball questions, ladies and gentlemen, are not off limits for basketball players. Football questions are not off limits for football players. And it's amazing to me how, as the money has proliferated in these sports, so has the sensitivity to everything, as well as the disrespect towards those asking questions. When folks needed the media and they needed the public to patronize their product and support their brand so you can help the sport grow and ultimately the money could be made, folks weren't acting like this then. So why do it now? And then in the case of Russell Westbrook, you just had that incident in Utah where everybody came to Russell Westbrook's defense because we assumed that the person that offended him had said something highly offensive. And because they had said something highly offensive, and Russell Westbrook stood in front of the cameras and the tape recorders and articulated what was said to him and how that person addressed him, we took Russell Westbrook's word because that individual denied it, if y'all remember correctly. He denied it. Now, I didn't believe him because I thought his story sounded completely bogus, and I totally sided with Russell Westbrook. But he did have a different version. And Russell Westbrook was given the benefit of the doubt. What if the day came where Russell Westbrook wasn't given the benefit of the doubt?
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is Bridget Flowers' Twitter feed.
The NBA playoffs are on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight for a doubleheader as the Brooklyn Nets take on the Philadelphia 76ers, followed by the Thunder versus Trailblazers. Presented by Indeed, coverage begins at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. Plus, need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. Rose, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me. Rose.
Yes.
Yes, you're live on the air, my dear. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Rose, and I want to know about Russell Westbrook and him and his way of how he been just totally being a bad boy. I never saw him that aggressive like he been here lately, and being so vindictive. I've never known him to do that.
Well, I wouldn't use the word. I wouldn't. Yeah, you could use that word when you consider his relationship with Barry Trammell, the columnist for the Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. But I would say this. It almost appears like, people are speculating. I have no idea whether this is true or not, but people are speculating that, this stuff is getting to him. He's got his money. He's the face of the franchise. He's got a $255 million contract. Was the largest in NBA history at the time he signed it. And since Kevin Durant has walked out the door, Russell Westbrook hasn't been out of the first round. And the last games on the last 16 or so games on the road, 17 games on the road, I think his number is like 4-13. That's his record. Actually, it's like 3-13 over the last 16 games on the road. And so he's going there tonight. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. It just doesn't seem to be all right with him right now. Thank you for the call, Rose. I appreciate it. But Russell Westbrook, he's under the gun. And so is Paul George. Now, Paul George wears that stuff on his shoulders so he doesn't look 100% healthy. And maybe that has something to do with it. But in the case of Russell Westbrook, no such excuse. not shooting well from the field, not shooting well for the free throw line this regular season anyway, certainly not shooting well from three-point range with the exception of Game 3. Russell Westbrook has been struggling, and he's being outplayed by Damian Lillard. And even though it's the backcourt that's doing it against the other backcourt, we all know it's going to come down to Russell Westbrook if OKC gets eliminated. He will be the talk in the offseason. Hour number 2 up next with PJ Cullis. Here at ESPN, ESPN Radio as well. He'll be calling tonight's game between the Portland Trailblazers hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder in Game 5. The great one himself, the one and only PJ Carlissimo, is on the line with yours truly. What's going on, Coach? How are you, sir? How's everything?
Not much, partner. How are you? It's good to talk to you.
Same here, buddy. Same here. What the hell is going on with the Oklahoma City Thunder in this series? If I had to put you on the spot to tell you to give me, I know there's a multitude of reasons that you could point to, but number one on the list in terms of OKC's problems would be what?
Portland's defense. The difference in the series is the defense, and the difference in the series, as it often is in the playoffs, is just individual play. And you can almost go 1 through 12. They're not playing quite that many guys, although a couple blowouts, but every player is getting outplayed just a little bit. And everybody's numbers for the Blazers are up a little bit. Everybody's numbers for OKC down a little bit. I mean, it's not a huge sample, this many games, 4 games, but when you look at what they've done over 82 games and what they're doing in this series, literally every single Thunder player is 1 or 2 points or more below his season average, and his percentages are down. And every single Blazer is up. I mean, everybody points at the 4 superstars, the backcourt from Portland, Lillard and McCollum. They're outplaying Paul George and Russell Westbrook. But, go to the next slide. Enes Kanter, who's in for Nurkic, is playing better than Steven Adams is playing. Al-Farouq Aminu is playing better than Jeremy Grant is playing. Mo Harkless is playing better than Terrence Ferguson's playing. Just that difference. And the defense is night and day. I thought this was going to be a high-scoring series, Stephen. They average virtually the same, like 114 and change for the regular season, and Portland has them down at 102. They've had them under 100 points 3 times already in 4 games. So it's been clear cut. They've defended better. They've taken away the bread and butter of OKC's offense, which, addition to the individual players, points off turnovers and second chance points on the glass. They're getting a push on that. They're just not letting them do what they were able to do in the regular season.
Is that your way of saying that too many people are making too much of Russell Westbrook's performance? He's averaging 21.3 in this series, but he's shooting 36% from the field and 30% from three-point range and averaging 4.5 turnovers per game. Is that your way of saying that too many people might be pointing the finger wrongly at just him?
Well, he deserves to have the finger pointed at him, but he's not the Lone Ranger. No, he's not playing the way Russell Westbrook is capable of playing. Came close to it or maybe did it in Game 3 and not by accident. They won that game. They stepped up. They had their backs to the wall and they responded, but then they slid right back. And it wasn't like Game 4 was a blowout. That thing kept going back and forth. But every time at halftime they came out, and I don't know what it is about the third quarter for Damian Lillard, but he's ridiculous in the third quarter. That got them the lead again. And OKC made a couple of really good runs at them in the fourth quarter. And you kind of had a feel, the series is not over yet, but you kind of had a feel if we don't get this game, this series is getting away from us. And every time they made a run and got close, C.J. McCollum made a basket, or Mo Harkless or Al-Farouq Aminu got an offensive rebound and a stick back. And, of course, Damian's going to make a couple of big shots down the stretch like he always does. So Russell has not played nearly as well as he's played, but he may be, and again, who knows what's in a guy's head or what's causing anything to happen, but it does look, I thought Charles, and it hurts me to say this because he's such a good buddy of ours, Charles may have made a perceptive comment when he said that Russell's trying to outplay Damian, and Damian's just trying to play basketball. And I don't know if that's what it is, but Russell's not playing as well as he's capable of playing. There's no question, but it's not like everybody else is doing their job and Russell's letting them down. It's a true team beatdown, if you will. Beatdown's too strong a word, but they're getting outplayed at every position, Stephen.
It's interesting because I'm looking at a guy like Enes Kanter who's filled in admirably since Nurkic has gone down. But I did expect Oklahoma City to be able to take advantage of the fact that you've got Steven Adams in there, getting him the ball more. Am I right in thinking that should happen? And if that is the case, we're talking about people being outplayed. What about Billy Donovan being outcoached by Terry Stotts, who is vastly underrated in my estimation?
I think they're both vastly underrated. I think Portland there's no question they're executing Terry's game plan a lot better. I don't know what Billy's telling them, but I hear you. There's been times during the playoffs when both Steven Adams and Nerlens Noel might be the one Thunder player who's playing better than he played in the regular season. And not just numbers, not just looking at the stats, but his time on the floor, he's been pretty productive. I think he's done a good job. But this is a team that still shoots so many threes and is so dependent on their transition game. You know, they're so good at forcing turnovers, and they're so good at scoring off those turnovers, and they're equally as good at getting on the offensive glass. And part of this problem is you're looking at two of the best rebounding teams in the league. You know, so like what OKC often does is beat up people inside. They get second chance points, and they get defensive rebounds all the time. They limit the other team's offensive boards. That gets them going. But I'll tell you what, when they're missing shots, and I credit a lot of Portland defense to that, and PG keeps saying, Stephen, he will not say that shoulder's bothering him at all. He's playing He's playing the most minutes, I think, of any individual in the entire playoffs. He's averaging almost double-figure rebounds, too. So if you look at his numbers, you say, well, it can't be bothering him. Look what he's doing. I still don't think PG is quite right. I think the shoulder is affecting him a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see whether Billy does go inside a little bit more, you know, to Steven or to Nerlens Noel. But their bigger problem is their inability to force as many turnovers as they normally force or get as many offensive rebounds as they usually get.
PJ Carlissimo, Coach PJ Carlissimo, ESPN NBA analyst extraordinaire, right here with Stephen A, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Coach, you alluded to, or you brought up what Charles Barkley said on TNT, how Westbrook is trying to outplay Damian Lillard, where Damian Lillard is just trying to play. And that might be one of the impediments to Russell Westbrook's success thus far. I could also bring up the fact that since Kevin Durant has been going, if he were to lose tonight, he would not have been going out of the first round since Kevin Durant departed. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant is winning championships in Golden State. Whether it's that, it's one or the other, or both. As a coach coaching Russell Westbrook, how do you alleviate this problem? How do you deal with this, knowing that you're coaching a guy who's so highly competitive, never cheats you with effort, is a superstar talent, but just not being as effective as you need him to be at this particular moment in time of the season? How do you remedy this?
I think it's a conversation. I think in one sense, anybody that's coached in the NBA would love to have a Russell Westbrook, and I'll put LeBron, he's a different type player, but a similar player. Somebody that is so headstrong, so competitive, and so committed to playing the way he plays, and frankly is fueled, you know, by that fire. So, like, you know, how do you say to him, hey, you know, you're letting this get in the way of you? I don't know how receptive they're going to be to. It's a conversation. Billy certainly is going to have a conversation, I think, at some point, or already has, with Russell, and saying, you know, what's your best trait is maybe hurting you a little bit right now. Now, nobody wants to win more than Russell wants to win or LeBron wants to win, but sometimes that competitive juice might get in the way. And it's funny because I didn't even know the stat, and that's bad on me for preparation. I knew that they hadn't won a series since KD had left there. They're on a horrendous streak. I'm going to say it's 10 or 12 games, road games. They haven't won a road playoff game since before KD left. KD lost his last couple there, evidently. They're at some ridiculous number, like 10 or 12 straight road playoff games that go back to when KD was there. So that's not something that maybe nationally people are aware of as much, but it's certainly something that's being written in the Daily Oklahoman every day, and it's certainly something that, you know, at least the veteran OKC players are aware of. You know, I'll tell you what, Stephen, Portland has done a really good job owning. They keep using the term they're owning what happened in the playoffs the last couple of years. both CJ and Damian have repeatedly talked about it. Like, we know we were swept. We know we had lost, how many games in a row coming into this series. And they're saying, that's us. We did it. We've got to put it behind us. And I think they're confronting it a little better than sometimes teams do. Remember a couple of years ago when the Spurs got beat in Miami in the finals, and it basically, that thing fueled them the next year? I really think there's an element of that with Portland doing a really good job accepting the lack of success they've had in the playoffs and carrying that chip on their shoulder, but using it in a good way. It seems to be helping them, believe it or not.
PJ Carlissimo right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So we'll stick with Portland for a second here for me, Coach. We were talking about this team. They probably get to the playoffs, get it out in the first round or whatever. Then lo and behold, they capture a number 3 seed for the second consecutive season. And then you look at them now, and your next matchup is going to be San Antonio or Denver. That series would likely probably go 7 games. It is entirely plausible and conceivable that the Portland Trailblazers are playing in the conference finals, assuming they handle their business tonight, because anybody could see them winning the next series.
Without question. It's really strange, bad word. It's kind of ironic how it's broken down. You just talked about it. The bracket is totally different than people anticipated. Not unlike what's going on in the East when you got Milwaukee and Boston going at each other right now in the conference semifinals. It could be, when you look at the bracket and you say, well, how would you like it if you can avoid Houston or Golden State, theoretically, until you get to the conference finals? Everybody would sign up for that. So the 4 teams, it's funny, the 4 teams on this side of the bracket have all looked at each other saying, we can beat these guys. They're all looking at each other saying, we can come out of this mix. And, it's going to be very interesting if, as you said, if Portland can take care of business and get to that next round. Denver, San Antonio, I don't know what to say. I haven't had a game in that series yet. I've watched a bunch of them on TV. I have no idea who's coming out of that series. But, again, you've got a matchup on one side that looks pretty appealing to all 4 people potentially who could be in that matchup.
By the way, to get back to your last question before we touched on Portland, Oklahoma City Thunder has lost 11 straight on the road. 11 straight.
Unbelievable.
11 straight playoff games.
Winning on the road
11 straight playoff games
is a very difficult thing, but they go, right, we haven't won since Kevin. I said, wait a minute, you didn't win a couple before that with Kevin. That's how long a streak they're on.
They lost all 3
playoff losses on the road.
Yeah, they lost all 3 at Golden State, Kevin Durant's last year in Oklahoma City, and haven't won a road playoff game since. We're talking to PJ Carlissimo right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let me keep you out west for a second. You saw Houston lose last night to the Utah Jazz. Closeout game, up 3-0, couldn't close them out in Game 4. They come out in Game 5 back in Houston tomorrow night. Talk to me about how you think that'll have an effect on the Houston Rockets moving forward, assuming they handle their business like most of us think they will and end up closing out this series.
I don't think much of a factor. I would have been totally wrong. I'm glad you didn't have me on last week or 2 weeks ago, because I'd have said I think that Utah-Houston series could really be a great series, really competitive. And Houston's handled them, particularly the first 2 games in Houston. I was really surprised. I mean, Quinn's team played so well, improved dramatically from when they were struggling early in the year. I thought it had the potential to be a really good series, and maybe it still does. Maybe, Utah's got a way to go into Houston and get that Game 5, and then it would be interesting. But I'm surprised at that one. Houston is obviously a little better than I gave them credit for. I think that loss the other night is not a big deal, particularly if they're able to take care of business in Game 5. I don't think it's a factor at all.
Coach, educate me about what you've seen Utah do with James Harden defensively, playing on his left hand, making sure you're literally giving him everything right and staying on his left hand so it's more difficult for him to shoot that 3. Do you think that's a good strategy? Do you think it's something that's worked effectively? Do you think it's something that Golden State will use in the next series to take advantage of?
Let me answer the question in a different order. Yes, it's a good strategy. No, it hasn't. It's worked effectively at times in this series, but not really.
At times.
But it's a little bit of what everybody wants to do. It's not just that James is dominant left hand. There's no question about that. But, you're talking arguably one of the best scorers in the history of the NBA. He can go right. There's no question. But it also makes his passing a little bit different. He passes primarily with that left hand. He passes with both hands, but he likes a lot of those shovel passes, those quick looks with that left hand. So staying on that side is not just a question of making him go right, and does he shoot it as well going right as he does going left? Probably not. But I think it's also the passing. It's also being able to tell the rest of their defense, look, this is the side of the floor that we're trying to make him attack, and we can, guard that side of the floor. But they move the ball so well. They're literally underrated offensively because he has the ball so much, and so does CP. You got two guys that are so comfortable having the ball in their hands for a long time that you sometimes don't talk about Houston's passing. There's a lot of possessions with that team where they'll skip it from one side of the floor to the other. They change sides of the floor very well, and they're really good at making that extra pass. Somebody's got a three, and he's maybe not wide open, one more little pass. The next guy is even more open, and they have so many shooters on the floor that it makes them hard to defend. But James is impossible. It's like you can't do a steady diet of anything. I don't think Utah is trying to mix it up, but I think clearly sitting on his left shoulder and trying to get him to go one way is a good idea, but it's more the total defensive package. It's more, let's try and keep the ball on one side of the floor. Let's make it hard for him to pass the ball to whoever the guys are in the left corner or the left side of the floor. But Mike just change it. Mike will change things. If he's got a particularly hot shooter and he likes him in the left corner and James running that pick and roll coming in that direction, then he just puts him in the other corner. They have counters to anything you're going to do defensively, and they truly are a great offensive team. They're so hard to defend.
Yes or no answer. Is Houston better this year than they were last year?
Well, I didn't think so, but they're doing a pretty good job of convincing me because I thought last year they were a level better than they are this year, but they may be better defensively. And the obvious answer to you asked me for a one-word answer: CP's healthy. If they got CP playing the way he's capable of playing, if they defend a little bit better, which I think they are defending this year, they're probably going to be a better team. They got to prove it. They've proved it so far, I think, in the first round.
The reason I was asking for a yes or no answer is because my next question was going to be, is Golden State better or worse than last year in your estimation?
That is a big question. They have not been to this point, but I think they're capable of being. Same answer I'd give to Boston Celtics. They haven't been to this point, but they're still scary. They both, because of what they've done in the past, especially Golden State, they have the potential to be just as good or better going forward.
Based on what you've seen, not just the regular season, but in these playoffs, who would you go with, assuming Golden State and Houston, the predictable collision course ultimately is official and they meet in the next round?
Golden State.
Let's transition to
They're too deep. They have too many weapons. I just had them again Sunday in Los Angeles. And I think they're a more balanced team. I think they are a better team on both ends of the floor. Then I think they're deeper, and I think they're a more balanced team than Houston.
Real quick before I get on out of here, Coach, is there anybody in the Eastern Conference that you see knocking off this Milwaukee Bucks team? I've been a Boston guy all year long. I got to admit, I'm looking at Milwaukee, man. They're scary.
They are. They absolutely are. I thought playoff experience would still hurt. I thought maybe, and Toronto. I want to see Toronto and Boston. And the good news about the way the draft's falling, we may see both of them. I really was leaning toward Toronto because they've done it, because of their playoff experience, and because the guys they've added to that mix, Gasol, Danny Green, and Kawhi, the playoff experience those guys have, I thought that could put Toronto over the top. I was waiting to see whether Boston could come back, but Bud and his guys keep proving me wrong. So I'm really looking forward to watching these next couple rounds in the East before somebody even gets to go West.
Does Boston have a chance against Milwaukee? And if so, why would they have a chance?
Because of their experience, because of their depth. I think when they need Marcus Smart, I don't know if that's going to happen.
He's not coming back this series, they said.
Yeah,
they said he's not coming back for this series.
Anything like he was playing earlier in the year, Milwaukee's been the more consistent team all year. Boston just scares me because of Kyrie and because of the playoff experience. They've been in conference finals at least the last couple of years, maybe three. I'm getting senile, Stephen. At least 2 years in a row they've been in the conference finals.
Yes. Two. Coach, I look forward to listening to you tonight. Call this OKC Portland game. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Enjoy the game. We'll all be listening, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Take it easy. The one and only PJ Carlissimo right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. I've been fixated on Boston. Like, yo, they're the team to beat in the East. Milwaukee's giving me cause to pause. I mean, I usually don't do the Max Kellerman thing where I'm waffling and I'm going back and forth. I don't do that. I like marry my position and damn it, I go down with the ship. But I gotta admit, Milwaukee making me nervous. Milwaukee's making me very, very nervous. They just look, they're so long. And they can shoot. And the Greek Freak is the Greek Freak. What else can you say? 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back with your calls and more in just a minute. Bottom line, Mom has always been your forever biggest fan, unconditionally supporting you every step of the way. So this Mother's Day, show her just how much you appreciate the love with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you get ahead of the Mother's Day rush, 1-800-Flowers will give you an exclusive 36 for 36 offer, 36 sorbet roses for just $36. That's only $1 per rose. Don't put this off. Order today. To order 36 sorbet roses for $36, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code Stephen A. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code Stephen A. with a PH, not a V. Hurry up! This fantastic offer ends Friday. 888-SAY-ESPN. Back with more of the Stephen A. Smith Show with your calls.
I'm looking at that truck.
Wow. That's awesome.
Everyone is excited about the all-new award-winning Chevy models.
They're all really cool cars.
Woo, I love it.
I like those lights.
Yeah. Look how beautiful this is. I can't stop staring at it.
Check them out for yourself at the auto show. Then go to your dealer to take advantage of an auto show deal like this. Current qualified competitive lessees can use auto show cash to get this all